So we're going to continue our magic narrative, the Eldritch Plane narrative. So, okay, there we go. Manfred tries not to take it personally. Tonight's episode. Well, it was a bit of a shock to meet someone from my own world back home. But since I'd already been talking to several different kinds of fish and the occasional monster, I'm surprised by how little attention I paid to him for most of our meeting. He was an important figure in his industry. Dot. What? He owned half of the businesses, and so I had to pay attention. And it turns out he had a lot of power because he could control the magic in this place. But that doesn't mean he's in charge here, in town, or anywhere else. Not really. Silly human in the business industry thinking that the town contained humans. He was in for a rude awakening. Man, that can't stay awake when I'm trying to help. What is this? Some kind of new species? No one ever thought about the fact that the people might be living inside a tower until they tried to bring in some food. What is it with you humans that you have to cook your food all the time? You seem to be incapable of handling raw meat. Where are those fangs I came to actually love when I studied the history of hominid anatomy? You were right the first time, second time, rather. They're everywhere. There's a whole section about eating insects in school. I'm going to do it later. Hold on, it's font. How big can this go? Whoa! For the grandmas. Let's try it out. Ooh, okay, so I guess when you can barely... Yeah. Come on, back to your original... I'll try this. Ooh! They're everywhere. There's a whole section about eating insects in school. I'm going to do it later. Aw, hell, why not now? I'll break out the cicada module right now. Hand me the cicada module. No way I was sleeping like that again. That was just the most horrible thing I've ever seen. I don't care if you can fly or whatever, but there's no reason for me to go around seeing people doing stuff like that. And he went and did it in front of a bunch of other wizards. He couldn't even wait for them to leave before he killed himself. It. It's not that difficult, guys. Don't let the hair color fool you. These things are much more flexible than their human counterparts. But still, I have to tell him he's dead. Otherwise, the real deal won't notice it. Speech, speech, speech. Sorry, I didn't mean to make anyone sad. And that's about how this... about how this week ended up. I submitted my grades to the students, and I decided to have myself a 3-day weekend. I'm gonna let it all hang out. I decided to let it all hang out. I decided to let it... I decided to let it all hang out. Dog. The people in my classes were pretty disappointed because they thought I had something important to say, but of course, I was thinking about something else. You could have fooled them with the things I thought. So I did a little dance for everyone, and then we took our final exams. And of course, the tests came out okay. C's across the board, and since Innedale has no national standardized testing system, there was no rubric to go by. No set quotas for student performance, so I was in the clear. A good job, too, considering that the whole class only studied one night during that time period. There are still several hours left in your summer holiday, so maybe you should study a bit after this. You'll need it. Well, actually, we're all probably going to lose an hour or two from that anyway, because I'm going to add some new concepts into the lesson plan next week. That subject is going to be covered like L. Ron Hubbard. hell? Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. He's a fan of Scientology, and his stuff works. Some people find it hard to believe, but trust me. And speaking of which, I have to mention the big event that happened this past week. I did not have any intention of telling anyone about it until everything was over with, but I can't wait to share it with you all tomorrow. I cannot wait to take this personally. It has been a long time coming. I hope it makes everyone happy. Bye-bye. Manfred walked through the streets holding his book open at random pages. The words just wouldn't stick in his head anymore, and even though he knew he was doing a pretty terrible job of reading, most people didn't seem to mind. He was tenured faculty, after all, in his University of One. He was tenured faculty in his University of One. Sure. He was 10 years, but culty. Most everybody ignored him except when someone would tell a story about a crazy thing they saw, and then laugh nervously. They were always good stories, because if he hadn't heard them firsthand, it meant that the tale wasn't true. But if he was telling it firsthand, it also meant that the creature could also just as equally appear during class. The day had gotten late and dark. There wasn't much light in this part of town now that the sun was down, and it's all the same weird shapes to look at anyway. It had been raining too. It was supposed to rain today, but there it was. The place was known as a sundown town, which has a different connotation here than on Earth. Downtown meant it was where rich people lived, and that it's kind of true, but really what they meant by that was that it was an old quarter of the city that used to be filled with fancy high restaurants and stores. Now it was basically just an enormous market square. The shops and businesses along both sides all looked pretty empty now. Understandable, since only two wizards really occupy space in that plane of existence at all. I'm talking about me. I've tried to talk to other wizards before, of course, and the problem with us is we're a lot like humans. We all want to live apart from each other. I mean, even though wizards have the ability to see far beyond their bodies, they still can't help being territorial and jealous. Take me and Tarrington, and his castle of Honfrus. Frequently do we call the interdimensional police on each other, citing interdomestic violence or electrical outlet inflagration. But the law is strict here, and even if he kills me for calling the cops, I would never get the reward money because he would just pay it to himself. I couldn't win in court. Not that there was any need. Our fights are usually over silly stuff, like the way I take control of his tower and made him fix up my home. I dressed as a wizardess, a witch even, a sexy witch that was entranced by him, and so he leapt at the thought of working incessantly for the possibility of magic pussy. No, you're right. He came strolling along, not paying attention to where he was going. He should be in front of class right now. He looked out at the streets and then behind him as if he were trying to find someone. I guess he'd found her, though. It took a while. I guess he'd found her, though it took a while. She walked through a door that led into the dark and gloomy university library. That's not a good idea. The place is too crowded with no humans. She'll bump into somebody. I know she can hear everything, but the voices of people talking, it such might scare her. Me and Tarrington agreed to make audio tracks of fake people to give the sense of a populated land. That way people wouldn't bother to try and do a home invasion of us, especially if they thought that there would be other people, more than 2 people, that they would have to kill. We already use the sounds of real animals to terrify the non-magic users. Of course, some wizards can talk with spirits and such, so I don't like that idea. You never know when it could come back to bite you later. So I will talk to her from this distance so that nobody else can see me. I can throw my voice like a Mother Hubbard. Not as well as he, but better than a regular person. And anyway, I always use the microphone because you need a lot of volume to fill that huge hall. Don't worry, Torrington. You'll find plenty of privacy here in our big building. The one we outbid each other indecently on, and managed to complete construction at a 3,000% markup. When it comes to magic buildings, spare no expense. All those little extras. Anyway, I wanted to tell you how sorry I am about your father. If there's anything I can do for you, please let me know. He looked down at his book again. He was starting to feel very uncomfortable having her standing in the background just staring at him. He kept reading, but she wasn't responding. Sorry, it's probably very loud. I'm just flailing the microphone to and fro. You'd think she'd say something, right? Maybe ask me if the story really happened or something. I'm not much of a liar myself, but maybe lying would be easier than talking to you. But he had to say something, so eventually he stopped reading and opened his mouth. He had never been able to make the best use of his words before. Hello? She turned around. She didn't even flinch. Oh, hi. Okay, she's reacting. What now? Can you hear me? Yes, this makes this easy. There's no secrets here. How'd you find us here? It's pretty straightforward. In a town like this where everybody's working at their full potential, there isn't too much energy left over for me and to be able to sense what you're thinking from the outside world. This was also surreal to Manfred. It seemed like he should have gotten used to her in a week or two, but it feels more like 3 years. Manfred. Hello, Manfred. The last few days were the strangest of his life. Manfred was beginning to feel completely outclassed by everything about her. He had to wonder. He had to wonder how things would have gone if he had found himself in the same situation as the young girl back on Earth. Probably nothing good. There's no time for that right now. I'm dealing with something that's much bigger than myself. He looked back at his book again, but he couldn't concentrate anymore. So many other thoughts were occupying his mind, and he felt very tired. He wanted to get some rest before dinner. I'm so glad you could stop in, because there's something you want to know. Presumptuous. That was a lot more personal than I expected. Do you like it? No, I don't think I do. And why is everybody always doing this, trying to make fun of me when I talk about my family? Maybe you need some friends. Who knows what your future will bring? It's a little bit of an honor to hear from one of the most powerful people here at school. I feel honored just talking to you. So, you like the fact that I can't read words too well and then tell everybody about it. Doesn't seem real fair, though. You're so funny. Now look. Oops, hold on. How about another compliment? What did he say to be nice? Please, I want to go now. At least you lean closer, staring in his face. Do you think I'm pretty in every way? Not really. You have beautiful eyes, though. They went greenish-white for a moment, but returned their normal color. I like that. A little flattery doesn't mean yes. He was starting to feel very uncomfortable again. She was not wearing any makeup today. That's usually enough to hide her beauty under her own special magic. So maybe she wasn't so scary after all and he didn't have to find out. Then again, she seemed a lot scarier without any clothes on. Did that just happen? I want you to stay. Can I trust you? Will you make friends with me? Are you willing to work together with us? Yes, no. Who cares how old you are? He couldn't think now. He could barely even speak. Why don't we just come get some coffee and relax? She looked a little disappointed, as if he hadn't made his mind up quickly enough and was being cooperative. You have to promise you'll help me. Just leave. No, it's not my problem. You should be going home. Oh, look, here's your busboy now. I hope you enjoy your night here, Manfred. She laughed at him again. He really hated the sound of her laugh. Manfred sat in an empty classroom, thinking really hard. The last thing he wanted to do right then, was to go talk to his friends about what had happened. I have friends? I have friends? Who are my friends? If they found out that he could read words, they'd probably kill him. It would ruin everything he'd done. He tried to remember some sort of spell of a curse that could make him human completely blind. It wouldn't be much use because he didn't know anyone's name, but anyway, if they killed him, nobody ever found out. It's a good thing that the friends are constructs too. Inventions of him and Tarrington. It was routines and subroutines to make things less lonely if the time came for it. To be honest, he wasn't really sure what to tell them when it did come. How would you react if somebody you didn't know started reading you for your parts? And it was going to happen eventually. Whether he told them now or later, it was inevitable. So there it was, the girl had been reading his mind. Not only that, she apparently thought that he couldn't hear her. That was weird enough, but even stranger than that, he had made some kind of contact with this young woman who was either extremely powerful or incredibly stupid. What does he do? Does he just sit and wait until he can leave school on a permanent basis? Wait a minute, he could turn her over to security. Then there might be something in the contract regarding wizarding behavior that said he has to report every strange occurrence to the school officials. He felt around on the desk for the phone book. Maybe they would help if he reported her. There was supposed to be a policy about interplanar contamination, according to an article he read. You quickly find the relevant article and pore through it. They'll have to get me some sort of test before they will believe me. I mean, how could they not believe me after all that? They were probably going to think that he had gone crazy again. You know that happens when a man in his mid-20s starts raving. I hope they have a very sizable and lengthy administrative leave. That way they won't be able to take away any part-time jobs that Manfred worked so hard for. It was a real mystery to him why the whole world let them run everything. Didn't anybody know where power came from anymore? This is very low. There we go. So, it was a real mystery to him why the whole world let them run everything. The government could pass all sorts of laws telling people not to work too much, and still everybody would do just whatever they wanted, like making a phone call on your cell phone right outside of school. Everybody did that now. Did you ever see anything done in a hurry that someone else didn't have the resources for? Even construction had been outsourced. Why bother with something that could be done cheaper and better by magic? Manfred had decided to put wizarding classes on hold until he got light. If he went up against this young woman on his own, she would destroy him with one spell. He knew some minor curses, but they were far outweighed by her magical strength. So he's going to wait in the deserted building until tomorrow. In the meantime, he had to get ready for dinner at home. There would be no more late-night trips to pick up Chinese food after hours. He really felt like a kid. It's not fair that kids always get to do fun things when grown-ups are stuck at school all the time. But when they aren't working for the government anyway. So what if a couple 100,000 teachers retired? What was the country supposed to do if everybody stopped getting older all the time? Nobody would have any time to screw around and raise families. Nobody would have any time, and you couldn't use a robot to make the babies. No wonder people in the third world had so many kids. Ew. Bias is reeking. The trouble with wizarding was that it attracted some of the most selfish and uncaring people in the world. You had your concealed powers. Everybody could tell you were a fraud. You could turn off their lights. The rest of them still had to go out and actually work. There were plenty of people who were willing to cheat on tests, take bribes, blackmail people, and otherwise defraud the system. They even wrote books telling everyone how to do these things, but it didn't change the fact that they were all still running everything while the ordinary citizens worked to feed themselves. No matter how you looked at it, wizarding was wrong. But I'm a wizard. Wait. And yet, here they were, wizards in the flesh, sitting right in front of him, and having a good old-fashioned conversation as though nothing had ever happened. That kind of magic made all this worth doing. And there was another thing. He'd been feeling a lot better today than he usually did since he started school. It wasn't all that difficult for an intelligent person to understand the importance of a solid education. It was the only way to stay out from underfoot and let other people do things with their lives. People needed to stop being so lazy and accept the responsibility of participating in the great adventure that was modern civilization. Ew. People, wizarding opened up the field to anyone. You didn't need any special training to get a job in wizarding society. There was no certificate that the Department of Education would recognize. A person could wake up one morning and realize that they were capable of manipulating energy fields. So what if nobody else shared their discovery? Wizards were individuals just like anybody else. They had a different set of skills and abilities. Every person had something valuable to contribute. This meant you couldn't be too critical of people. You might make fun of somebody's haircut or fashion choices, but who really cared about those trivial matters anyway? At the same time, it wasn't fair to point out someone else's stupidity either. What good was life without some kind of competition and cooperation? Everybody wanted to win. If you weren't going to do anything, then you should at least keep your mouth shut and mind your own business so that you wouldn't get stepped on. Manfred looked around this classroom again. It didn't take a degree in political science to figure this stuff out. The more people accepted that there was a better way to do things, the sooner that they all get to live by their own rules. And even if that process took a long time, that was what progress was all about. Manfred knew the difference between himself and these people in a minute. These students probably never had read a book that wasn't written for them. He might not have been the most knowledgeable wizard ever known, but he did know the meaning of words and grammar. Even if he never learned new spells, knowledge was useful. That was why he was trying to learn it now. He felt cheated out of the chance to advance to higher levels. He thought back over everything that was happening here. So much of what he had already happened had made perfect sense once he understood what was really happening. This school had a specific plan. That was obvious from the way that they arranged the curriculum to match everybody's skills. Somebody up in the front rows noticed him watching and turn around. Somebody up in the front rows noticed him watching and turned around. There were no class pictures yet because there wasn't enough room for everyone to get their portraits taken. You could use some kind of magic to alter their image or to whatever you liked or need. They said hard pass. Don't talk to me. He turned to face the empty seats where the others usually sat and smiled as best as he could through gritted teeth. They must have recognized how stupid it would look to try to stare him down when they could see right past their noses. Mother always told them that nobody ever won an argument with a smile on his or her face, unless they didn't care whether they win or lose. If you tried too hard at this game, you'd just make everybody mad. That was even truer with people who hadn't learned to read. His mother always told him that nobody ever won an argument. Okay. There was a pause while he studied the board for a few moments, then it came again. No wonder the teacher was in such a hurry. Everybody was trying to memorize all these things without reading them. This was going to be very tough. Thankfully, you have a large-ass memory palace. You're sitting on the wrong end. It should be pointed away from the door. You'll notice that there's more than one kind of male butt cheek. He looked up at the clock. Just after 2 in the morning. He might do better talking to somebody in the hallway for now. In the meantime, you memorize all the different types of male butt cheek and their names. Thank you. That would help a lot. The next class let out and Manfred slipped into the hall. Good evening. How are you doing tonight? The pretty lady librarian was waiting in the dark. Of course she was beautiful, but it took quite a bit to make him turn around now. He nodded his head as though he understood her question. This is a big night, he smiled politely. It's been a very long time since anybody gave me an answer like this. You look nice tonight. She felt a surge of warmth across the chest, but it lasted only a moment. Don't do that. Why not? She looked puzzled. I thought that was what all humans did. They looked nice when they were happy. Well, it worked on everybody else, why not on me too? Because you're a human being, not some kind of machine for sexual stimulation. People think that looks make the difference in sex game with humans. But the way you said it sounded like the words had come from somebody else. Was he sitting behind her with a megaphone, speaking through the telephone? There was nobody there. He could feel how strongly she liked the compliment, and the way you spoke bothered him. The voice wasn't your own. Did he know where this came from? Who was he? Why did they need to talk about things like that in front of a bunch of strangers? All right, you're a human, a beautiful woman, fine. If you want something from me, then say it, otherwise shut up, go away. Oh, you're so cute. You always speak the truth without thinking about what it will sound like. How can you tell I'm going to say anyway? She didn't seem surprised by his outburst. Maybe it's just the thing she wanted to hear. Manfred tried to catch a glimpse of her eyes, but couldn't see anything in the dark hallways. It wasn't easy for him either. Okay, Manfred, make your move, come on, said his voices in his head. The Parliament critic. Card has never let me down before. My mom says I should wait till payday before I buy that big-ass stereo system with all the fancy features. I know how to get in touch. My name is Manfred. That spells it out for you. Now, if you excuse me, I've got a date with the most beautiful lady in the world. And how'd the date go? There were no movie schedules at the time. Or maybe she was watching a bad movie. Her house smelled wonderful. She must use some kind of spell or incense. You don't have any control of yourself when you get into an argument with somebody like that. The next moment, he was sitting in a small room alone. He hadn't realized how tired he had gotten. When the teacher asked the class for their opinion about his performance, she seemed genuinely upset. She told him his behavior was excusable, but that it showed a total lack of understanding about the importance of education. That's right, don't go around trying to embarrass everyone else. Keep your nose clean. Manfred smiled to himself, had himself always wank right in the classroom, and fell asleep. Very nice boy, and you know it. You want to put words in his mouth? Why? She turned off her flashlight and sat in silence for a long time. Finally, he heard her take a deep breath and let it out slowly. She stood up. Good night. Manfred watched her leave. I am Manfred. That's all that matters. The moral of the story thus far: wizardry is for losers, and the world doesn't need them. Well, that's the first lesson of the day. This is going to be an important week. You'll learn how the society works. Innedale is a wild and vague place, inhabited by a wide range of bizarre magical... No. Anytime I give you that, just gonna erase it, retry. Wizards are just like everybody else. They have friends, enemies, jobs, interests, families, and sex lives. There were plenty of reasons why they might want to do something nasty, but it would help them a lot if people didn't point at other people and say mean things. People would be better off if they tried harder to figure out what makes each of them tick. Or explode. Or implode. Okay, that's enough for tonight. Oh wait, hold on. Oops, hold on. Why is everybody running around looking so happy? Manfred got back to the dormitory sometime after midnight. He was very tired, but there wasn't anything he could really sleep at the moment. Instead, he wandered through the maze of halls and corridors. Nobody wanted to talk to him. No one bothered asking any questions about the girl that had walked down the hall earlier. So he said, fine, I'm gonna have a sleep, knowing that the sleep was going to destroy the world and make it again. Totally different. And my mom says, no, you're not doing any good anyway. You're only making it worse, and you know it, and when you find the cure for it, then you'll feel bad. You won't know what to do with yourself. I guess that was a very stupid thing to think right now, because the only cure is finding the reason. It's probably a little bit crazy. Manfred goes to sleep. The world ends and begins again. What would I ever do with myself if everybody went insane? He found himself sitting outside the entrance to the girls' bathroom. That was where he usually went to hide out. It was very quiet. The lights were still on and it was getting hot out there. It was a long while before anyone came down this hallway. The final moral of the story for the afternoon is... Inodellans can be both male and female. If the person looks very male, they are called male natals. However, if they look too much like females, they are called female natals. If you're thinking that this kind of thing is common in other worlds, just remember that people from other countries use the terms completely differently. Okay. Good night, or I'll take... take care. A yixiao, a yashou, a yeshiao, a yeshiao, and jiabiesi. Good night.